President Trump delivers his first State of the Union address.
Students kick off Black History Month with a special celebration.
And Northwestern Greek Life plays for a purpose at this year's Drop the Puck on Cancer event.
We'll have all that and more coming up tonight on the Northwestern News Report.
It's your news right now.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Merica.
And I'm Isabel Lawrence. Thanks for joining us. We begin with President Trump's State of the Union address tonight. Members of Congress and their guests are currently taking their seats ahead of tonight's speech. This will be President Trump's first State of the Union address since taking office more than a year ago.
And tonight we have wall-to-wall coverage starting with NNN's Eric Miller.
From tragedy,
this American carnage,
to triumph.
Why America's future has never been brighter.
1 year in, that's the tone President Donald Trump will be looking to strike Tuesday night. Top of the list for the president, tax cuts and a strong economy.
Including our great success with the markets and with the tax cut.
With the stock market at record highs and unemployment down, the president will likely continue the theme he began last week at the World Economic Forum. President Trump is also expected to touch on long-promised infrastructure updates and to push his immigration plan released last week. As it stands now, the plan grants amnesty for 1.8 million so-called dreamers while providing $25 billion for a border wall and restructuring legal immigration to the United States. Not on the agenda for tonight, Russia. Only 1 day after Republicans said they would release a memo questioning the FBI's conduct in the Russia investigation, the White House said that it's not a priority for the president right now.
Says that, frankly, no one cares about this issue, and it's certainly not the thing that keeps people up at night. We'd love to talk about all of the things that do, and my guess is that will be the focus of the president's State of the Union.
All right, and we would like to thank NNN's Eric Miller for that report. Now we will go to a report from D.C. from our Ben Trachtenberg.
President Donald Trump will deliver the first State of the Union address of his presidency tonight. In it, he is expected to talk about North Korea, the Dreamers, as well as his infrastructure plan. Most of the government will be in attendance, including the House and Senate, Supreme Court justices, military leaders, and cabinet members, but not all. Notably missing from the audience tonight, Representative Jan Schakowsky of Illinois. Schakowsky says that the decision to boycott the speech is an effort not to normalize a presidency that she says has dishonored the country.
If I thought that the President of the United States was in the least bit respectful of any institutions, he'll go after the FBI, he'll go after members of the judiciary, he will make up derisive names. He's a name caller, he's a bully. It would be different.
Schakowsky, who represents Evanston as part of Illinois' 9th District, is suspicious of the president's forthcoming infrastructure plan, which she says doesn't help the small municipalities across Illinois.
Their top priority is infrastructure, and the President of the United States talks about a $1 trillion infrastructure program. But when you get down to it, he was talking about $200 billion of federal money, meaning about over 10 years. And the rest, he says, would come from state and local governments and private corporations.
Congresswoman Schakowsky is not the only Illinois congressperson not attending the State of the Union tonight. She's joined by Danny Davis and Bobby Rush. But her colleague Brad Schneider says attending the State of the Union is a show of unity for the entire country.
I share all those concerns about this administration. I disagree with almost all of the steps that they have taken, whether it's on immigration, the racist comments of the president. But that doesn't change the fact that he is the president of the United States.
Whether or not they support the president, Illinois residents will certainly be watching the State of the Union tonight with intent and skepticism. I'm Ben Trachtenberg, Northwestern News Network.
So now we're going to go in studio here to our panel. We are joined now by Fallon Gallagher and James Duran, hosts of Nightcap. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Let's go ahead and start in on some of this analysis. Fallon, let's start with you. What should we expect the president to say tonight?
Yeah, you know, while he's actually not going to speak until 8 o'clock Central Time, Axios is out with a couple of excerpts from the speech that came from the White House. I think that we can expect to see a lot of pro-American language, not surprising from the candidate who wanted to make America great again. This first bullet point that we have here, it has him saying tonight that he's going to say, "Tonight we are building a safe, strong, and proud America." And I think that he is probably going to accentuate those words. We can also expect that he will probably talk about his successes. So his tax reform bill, that's the only one that's really coming to mind right now.
All right, James, how do you feel?
Well, I think we can all expect a fairly professional on-message speech. I think it's going to be similar to the joint address last year. I think there are a few accomplishments that he's going to talk about. I think in addition to tax reform, he's going to talk about the stock market. He's going to talk about the bonuses that we've been seeing emanating from the tax bill, companies saying they're giving bonuses because of the benefits of that tax plan. But really what I'm looking for is to see how he articulates the White House position on the next two priorities, really imminent priorities being immigration and the budget, as well as how Republicans in the room receive that. So in addition to that, we'll see what the priorities are for 2018.
Great. And additionally, President Trump has had historically low approval ratings for this first year in office. Is there a speech he can give America tonight that's going to give them hope for the upcoming year?
You know, I think James mentioned that speech that we saw, his first speech, the Joint Chamber of Congress that we saw last February. I think that if he can give a speech like that, you know, that speech, it personally gave me hope. I think if he can give a speech like that, but then more importantly, if he can then remain on script, not just giving the speech, but then continue with his tweets on script, stop attacking members of his own party in Congress, all of these other inflammatory tweets that we've seen. So if he can just, you know, New Year, new Trump, New Year's resolutions 2018, if he can stay on script, I think we can expect to see that.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think that'll be key is whether he can capitalize. But at the end of the day, I just don't think, I think regardless, if he gives the best State of the Union address we've ever heard, folks will just not receive it. Folks are just sort of close their ears to what this president has to say. About 55–60% of folks, I just don't see them taking any message that he has to offer really to heart.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you both for some of that analysis. I'm told that we now have NNN's Eric Miller live from Washington, D.C. Eric, can you hear us?
Yes, Andrew, I can. And as you can see, I'm out here in front of the White House. President Trump is going to be making his way in just a few minutes up to Capitol Hill to give his second address to a joint session of Congress, but his first State of the Union. We'll know for sure soon enough what the president has in store for us, but we'll be watching to see whether or not he stays on script for the full hour tonight. No guarantees, but nonetheless, we're excited to see what's coming up.
All right, Eric, thank you so much for that. For a full post-game analysis of the speech, be sure to tune into this week's edition of Nightcap, Thursdays at 8 o'clock.
Of course, and of course, a huge thank you to Fallon and James for joining us. So what are NU students expecting from the president's address tonight? NNN's Nikki Griswold has the answer.
For those on NU's campus, the general expectation is that he'll highlight his administration's successes from the past year, like passing the tax bill, extensive deregulation, and appointing Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. But it seems like the biggest question for tonight's State of the Union address is whether President Trump's message will be one of unity or division. Edmund Bannister thinks it'll be the latter.
I think his instinct is to be as divisive as possible. I think he's going to blame the recent government shutdown on the Democrats and basically say that they're the reason why DACA isn't being passed.
But Dominic Bayer expects President Trump to take advantage of the opportunity to act more presidential than he does on Twitter and to demonstrate his leadership abilities.
He'll definitely pay lip service to bipartisanship, even if he's not planning on being bipartisan in 2018, just because it's national TV.
Political science professor Ben Page thinks this speech will be indicative of the difference between Trump as a campaigner and Trump as president.
Tweets seem to fit his personal character very nicely. He likes to say dramatic short things. He's not very much into learning about details of policy. He appears, in fact, not to know much about it.
But when it comes to his administration's legislative agenda,
he put Michael Pence in charge of appointments, essentially. He accepted Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell's legislative priorities, and that boiled down to a pretty standard conservative orthodox legislative program.
So who will give the State of the Union tonight? Trump the tweeting campaigner or Trump the president?
if any situation can be controlled, the State of the Union definitely can. But again, with Donald Trump, there's absolutely no way to predict what he's going to do next.
We'll find out what President Trump's take on the state of our union is in about 50 minutes. Back to you guys.
All right, Nikki, thank you. We know what NU students are expecting from the speech, but what do they think of the state of our union?
We asked them in this week's Rock Talk, coming up next.
Go you Northwestern. Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
We're back now with continuing coverage of President Trump's first State of the Union address.
And for this week's Rock Talk, we asked students on campus how they feel about the current state of our union.
I'm Emma Evans, and I'm here at The Rock asking you what the state of our union is.
I think that if the president needs to use Twitter as a platform to reach out to millions of Americans, then our country's in a little bit of trouble.
Seems like our economy is doing pretty well. The stock market seems to be bustling, and people seem to be getting jobs. Unemployment's rather low.
There's just no communication, and people aren't being accurately represented.
I think there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed that aren't being addressed, and a lot of issues that are being addressed that don't need to be addressed.
The people pretty clearly want something different than what the government wants.
But I think that is causing a lot of people to band together in solidarity around the issues that they believe in. And I think that could have positive results in the long term.
If you have any ideas for future Rock Talk topics, tweet at us at NNN_news.
Northwestern already has a 2-year on-campus living requirement. Now, the Undergraduate Residential Experience Committee is recommending a new single residential model with 5 neighborhoods across campus. This new model is built on 4 major tenets: community, student agency, academic linkages, and care and support. Each neighborhood will share main spaces such as a dining hall, a gym, and an academic collaboration space. Within each neighborhood, students will be organized into houses to foster deeper levels of support and trust. Jennifer Luddig-Komorowski says she's excited about how each neighborhood will also include faculty-in-residence apartments.
Students would have the opportunity to engage in learning opportunities outside the classroom. They would be able to interact with faculty, students, and staff who are all interested in accelerating and building upon the excellence that already exists within the residence halls today.
The committee co-chair, Paul Riel, emphasizes that the overarching goal is to create, quote, community, connectivity, and affinity for students on campus. The committee also places great importance on getting feedback from students. Leighton Goyton, a first-year student, looks forward to how these changes will affect his 2 years living on campus.
So I think it could be a really interesting way to group students together and kind of have the dorms be less of separate entities and bring communities together rather than just, having the residential colleges be their own thing.
Students and faculty are invited to submit comments to housing@northwestern.edu. And coming up, the CTA announced a major extension of the Red Line on Friday.
But with both federal and local funding uncertain, how are they going to pay for it? That's next in Money Minute.
Well, we've had a week of beautiful weather, but will it continue? I'm Esther Wells, and coming up, I'll have your 5-day weather forecast.
At Northwestern, we're wildcats in every way.
Northwestern, break right through that. cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, spread for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. At Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
Welcome back. Here's your 5-day weather forecast. Tomorrow, expect to see cloudy skies, a high of 44 and a low of 19. We may get a bit of rain and snow, so keep those jackets handy. And sorry folks, the warm weather's been nice, but February is off to a brutal start Thursday with a high of 26 and a low of 8. Stay bundled Thursday night because the wind will make that 8 feel like 7 below. We're ending the week with a frigid Friday, a high of 19 and a low of 9. Expect some snow Friday night as well. Saturday, the high is 21, the low is 11. We'll see more clouds than sun and a bit of snow in the evening. I would stay indoors Saturday night because the wind will make it feel like minus 11. And finally, Sunday, unfortunately, it does not get much better with a high of 27 and a low of 17. We're expecting sleet and freezing rain Sunday night, so stay safe. And that has been your 5-day weather forecast. I'm Esther Wells. Back to you.
Thanks, Esther. Students, faculty, and community members came together on Friday night to kick off Black History Month on Northwestern's campus.
NNN's Joey Safchik was there. She joins us now with more on this momentous event. Joey?
That's right. Harambe is a Swahili word for pull together, and that's what Multicultural Student Affairs and student organization for members only did last Friday night. They put together Northwestern's annual celebration of the African diaspora, known as Harambe. I spoke with them about what the event represents on campus and its particular political relevance this year.
The word Harambe is most often used as a Kenyan rallying cry in order to bring communities together. In the Lewis Room at Norris, Casey Brown and the rest of 4 members only did just that. Dozens of students, faculty members, and community activists gathered for speakers and performances on Friday night.
It's a good time to just come together and reflect on that, reflect as how can we get better, how can we actually make progress, so we can all just sit and reflect and remember how we're here and how much further we have to go.
FMO and Multicultural Student Affairs hope that this event can amplify underrepresented Black student voices across campus and throughout the nation.
Attendees indulged in traditional African cuisine and Southern comfort food, while speakers discussed the history of Black culture at Northwestern. They previewed a documentary about the Black student sit-in of 1968 and discussed some of their own experiences as participants.
Within this political climate, I think it's even more important to hold on to community and acknowledge the importance of community. Even though we are small, we are mighty, because a good number of us came together for this event.
Freshman Taylor Boulding hopes the visibility of Black students on Northwestern's campus will increase in coming years. For Northwestern News Report, I'm Joey Safchik.
The evening is the first in a series of events in honor of Black History Month on campus. More information can be found on the Northwestern Multicultural Student Affairs website.
Great story. Thank you for sharing, Joey. And big changes are on the way for the CTA Red Line. Matt Dunn has more in this week's Money Minute.
The CTA plans to extend the Red Line about 5 miles past 95th Street to 130th Street, closing what some community activists have called a transit desert on the south side. The cost, a whopping $2.3 billion. But let's back up for a minute. The Red and Purple Line Modernization Project, which was announced in 2012 and is still ongoing, cost $2.1 billion. Half of that was funded by a federal grant from President Barack Obama in his last days of office. The other half will be funded by tax increment financing, or TIF, in affluent Northside communities. Fast forward to the current situation, President Trump has expressed hostility toward Chicago, and his stated budget priorities show little interest in transit. Meanwhile, Illinois has cut back on transit operating funds and has not had a capital bill since 2009. Now, currently, the CTA has secured $85 million in funding to do the necessary economic and environmental analyses before it formally petitions the Department of Transportation for funds. Now, Mayor Rahm Emanuel and CTA President Dorval Carter remain confident that they can get the federal government on board with their plan. Meanwhile, earlier this month, the CTA hiked its fares for the first time in 9 years. Bus and train fares increased by 25 cents, while monthly fares increased by $5. The Red Line extension project could begin as early as 2022, and CTA economists say the project could create as many as 6,200 jobs. With Money Minute, I'm Matt Dunn.
Thanks, Matt.
And coming up, Northwestern drops the puck on cancer.
Go you Northwestern. Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
NU fraternities grabbed their hockey gear and faced off on the ice to raise money for the American Brain Tumor Association.
Sports Night's Miles Miller shows us how they dropped the puck on cancer.
What do you get when you combine philanthropy, fraternities, and a frozen rink? Lots and lots of fun.
I think it's a really fun opportunity for people to actually go out and support something really fun and be ultimately supporting a charity. And how can you not love seeing your friends who can barely skate attempt to play hockey? It's really fun.
For the third straight year, Northwestern University participated in dropping the puck on cancer. What may look like an amateur hockey series from a distance is all for a very noble cause.
American Brain Tumor Association is the organization that we partner with. It started with Sigmund Kai's mother passing away from brain cancer, so this is, the perfect organization that we thought, represents the reason why we're doing this event.
Northwestern fraternities Phi Kappa Psi, Phi Delta Theta, Sigma Nu, Lambda Chi Alpha, Beta Theta Pi, and Delta Tau Delta all competed in a hockey tournament at Robert Crown Ice Center here in Evanston. And there was no short order of support for the brave skaters.
I just think it's really fun to watch. I don't know, nobody really knows how to skate, so they fall over and it's really fun. Honestly, I'm most looking forward to the 2 people on our team who actually know how to play having fun on the ice, and then everyone else kind of flailing around and cheering for them and booing them, etc.
I think it's a great look for the Greek community, especially, they're in a negative spotlight in our society right now, and I think doing an event like this, and it can reach the hearts of people, closest to these people in these houses, they maybe have a family member themselves going through an illness like this or something similar, so, it allows them to give back to the community and really show that, not only are they joining a fraternity for, their experience, but to help out other people as well.
Although much of the focus was on hockey, the bigger picture was not lost on the participants.
Oh, I think it's really important. A, it's for a good cause, and B, it shows it brings the Greek community together. I didn't know many of those Lambda Chis, but now we have an experience, some friendly hockey that we play, and it's just a really fun time overall, and it's for a great cause. So it's a great event to do, I think. So.
For NNN Sports, I'm Miles Miller.
By the end of the tournament, the fraternities raised about $3,000.
Coming up, we'll meet a first-year student with a unique story in our Newsmakers Report.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, spread for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
Welcome back. We're joined again by Fallon Gallagher and James Duran of Nightcap with some new updates tonight. Fallon?
Yeah, we actually have some new information coming from the Democratic side, that some Democratic response, or actually if we want to call it Democratic preemptive response, as the speech still has not started. Our Congressman Jan Schakowsky is one of those Democrats who said that she will not be attending the speech. She is making some other news more recently. She was recently on Aaron Burnett tonight in the 7 o'clock Eastern hour saying, quote, about Trump, he's a bully, he's mean, he doesn't respect the institutions, he's made fun of the FBI, he's gone after judges. I think to normalize this president is wrong. So that's coming from our Congresswoman. Just
Northwestern's Congresswoman.
Northwestern's Congresswoman.
So James, is that you think that's making waves right now on either
Well,
side?
I think it's interesting. I mean, it sort of supports what we were talking about, which is that he really can't give a speech that certain folks will listen to or like. And I think over that, we're also seeing a report out recently from PBS that there are going to be 5 different Democratic responses tonight. I think that's going to be very problematic as they try to find their message in response to the president, sort of making that question of what do Democrats stand for even harder to answer for a lot of folks who aren't loving either side, haven't loved the alternative put forward by Democrats over the first year of the Trump presidency. So, very interested to see how those 5 responses go and whether they're on the same message.
And if you were to have to predict what we are going to be hearing from these Democrats later in the evening, what are you expecting they address? What are some points do you think they're really going to drive home for the American public tonight?
I think that they might not touch as much on policy, more as they will on Trump specifically as a character. I think we'll see a lot of what we were seeing from Schakowsky, this idea of him being a bully, attacks on his character rather than policy, which he does to an extent make easier for them when he does things like what we were talking earlier with the tweets, going after members of their own party like Chuck and Nancy. Yeah, I think that's what we can expect.
Yeah, I think Congressman Kennedy's response will be very polished. I think it'll have some substance in it. I think the others will probably mostly take cheap shots tonight.
All right, well, thank you both for joining us again with those updates, and we'll have to leave it right there.
Right, and back to campus news. Most incoming students at Northwestern can choose from a wide variety of majors, but this is not the case for this week's NNN Newsmakers. Charlie Rode has the story.
Ahmed Almadan is a Weinberg first year studying computer science, but he didn't choose this major. The Saudi Arabian government chose it for him.
I knew that I want to study like CS or business. It was like I was having doubts about both, but then I was forced to study CS.
As part of a government-sponsored program, the Saudi government pays all of Almadan's financial expenses and tuition.
It has to be a STEM major, and they have to graduate in 4 years. Basically, I study 4 years in the US. I go back home and I get my master's from the graduate school that sent me here.
Like Almadan, Badir Al-Hamid attends Northwestern on the same program. He is a McCormick sophomore studying chemical engineering.
Basically, I have to study chemical engineering, so I get my tuition paid. If I don't study chemical engineering, I would lose my scholarship.
The scholarship also included a gap year after graduating high school.
I took a gap year at the University of Washington, so there I took some English classes, and I actually got to speak English for a bit.
So he hasn't had that much difficulty in adjusting to America.
I thought it was gonna be a huge culture shock, but with the internet and traveling, it wasn't much of a culture shock.
And with 1 quarter down, he feels at home with his fellow Wildcats. Charlie Rode, Northwestern News Report.
All right, thank you so much, Charlie, for that inspiring report. There really is such a wonderful collection of students that we have on this campus, I think.
So true. I mean, as a journalism student, I could never imagine having to do something like chemical engineering. That's so out of my realm of expertise here, but.
Right. Okay. Well, something else out of our realm, I think, is politics. So we're going to leave that for Thursday night when you can tune into Nightcap. That's at 8 o'clock here at Medill, livestream.com/MedillNU. For all of us here at NNN, I'm Andrew Merrica.
And I'm Isabel Lawrence. Thanks for joining us. Good night.